Good to see you.
Good to see you too, man.
It's almost like we just did a video.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful day outside, so I don't mind.
That's right. Part of our video series, we will be talking about study skills. And I know that Steve has had conversations with me about pre-lecture study that I would find to be also valuable for other students. So, please, share.
Alright, Let me pitch it to you this way. All right. You ever been in a class and you're like looking around, you're just like, what's going on? And you see your classmates like, oh yeah, asking questions like, oh this, and this, and then you're just like, what does that even mean? And you're just like, how does everyone get this?
Yeah, yesterday.
Yeah.
That was me.
Yeah, exactly. And well, I've come to realize like I feel like in your head you make it probably worse than it is. Like there's probably a lot of other students in there doing the exact same thing, like probably looking at you and they're like, "Oh, this guy gets it," and I'm the one that's struggling. But like there's always those good students that like just are on top of it in class and you're just like, "How is this even possible? We're barely covering it." So, I think I think you have to you gotta get around that somehow because like that really destroys your confidence in class and it even makes you think like should I even be coming to class because I don't can I just learn this from the book because I'm not learning it here in class.
Yep. That's
So
so true.
yeah.
Yeah. So, what are your ways that you combat that?
All right, so I mean it's not that intuitive but like you gotta study before going to class. I mean, right? Because everyone studies after going to class. I mean, you still gotta do that, but I think it really takes off the load of studying after when you start before class. And it doesn't even have to be super intensive, like you have to know everything perfectly detailed, but like I think you should at least skim the book, like maybe look through the like what's the chapters like name, like what's the sections name, like what are the key words in here,
Yeah.
like maybe look at the questions being asked and
Mhm.
see how they relate to each other. Um, like try to get a general idea of like what concepts like or what everything is how everything's gonna tie together.
Right.
I think like that's really important. So that like you at least have like a story or plot line to follow in class. You're not just like everything's super uncohesive and you're just like this doesn't make any sense.
Right. Yeah, that brings me to think about at least two more study skills, which is one, the time management part, right? Because many of us will study after lecture,
Mm-hmm.
but I completely know what you mean. There's nothing like that feeling of being in lecture and just not feeling like you're understanding anything.
Yeah,
There's really no feeling
that's
like
the
that.
worst.
And time management's key. But another part of that is sometimes the calendar or the pre-lecture material that's going to be covered that day is not very transparent. Like it's not always published by the teachers, and the other study skill there would be interacting with teachers, right?
Yeah.
Or perhaps TAs, and figuring out what they're willing to describe and what they're willing to provide for you, so that you can actually prepare beforehand, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's really cool.
I mean, as far as I know, like I just see based off the syllabus, like what are some things we're gonna cover,
Yeah.
and instead of like reading the whole book, or if you're like pressed for time, like you could just see the keywords, and you can even look them up on YouTube
Mm-hmm.
and just see videos. Because usually, like I mean, you could replay those. You can see like different explanations.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's always like Khan Academy. There's Jeff's videos.
That's right.
There's
There's our videos too.
our videos.
Um,
Yeah, there's so many resources out there, and like when you do that, like your time in class, it's not just wasted anymore. Like it becomes really useful because now you have like you're kind of following along. You can ask questions in class. Like you belong. You feel like you belong in the class
Yeah.
rather than you're just barely holding on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like the verb of belonging because there are so many students that I've personally spoken to and just groups that I've attended where students don't feel like they belong in college. And that is quite a sad sentiment to hear, right? Because I think at some point many of us have felt the same way, right? Whether it be the imposter syndrome or whether it be why am I really doing this? All of those doubts re-enter our minds. But if we put some of these study skills in play, not only will we be able to create more significant and meaningful learning experiences, but we'll be really able to kind of make this time valuable, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Cool.
Cool.
More to come.
More to come.
Okay, cool. There was a lot I wanted to say actually. Like,
I think that was a pretty good video.
that was a really good video. Yeah, energy was definitely
Yeah.
up, and there was more dialogue, which was nice. So, just between us, like, yeah, pre-lecture is really important. I'm thinking about the idea of searching up those concepts,
Mhm.
but not only searching them up. Like, if we were able to train students or provide students a way to communicate with professors, because that's hard, right? That
Yeah.
that in and of itself is a study skill. But if students can begin to ask critical questions in their own mind and be able to take some of those down before speaking to their professor, that's really cool. Because one, they're really maximizing the resource of someone who is advanced and a professional and an expert in that field to the fullest, and it'll show not only to the professor that the student's taking it seriously, but it can also show other students that, hey, this is not someone that's just raising their hand to answer the question for the sake of knowing it, but is really asking some questions that not only helps the individual, but the class as a whole, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of brings in the community and that collaborative learning.
I
That-
mean, learning is not fun when it's like by yourself, man.
Mhm.
Like that's the worst.
But oftentimes it seems that way, right?
Yeah, it's pretty isolating.
Yeah.
I feel like I tend to do best in like the classes where they have icebreakers, because you get to know people. You know, you build a sense of community.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just like you against every other student in this class. It kind of feels like
Yeah.
you guys are kind of a team. You guys are trying to get through this together.
That's right.
Yeah.
And one thing we should brainstorm about is for classes that don't have those opportunities of icebreakers, of a collaborative setting, of a really healthy learning community environment, how can we cultivate and create that for ourselves, right? Whether it would be approaching a handful of students after class, maybe even before class, and thinking about when to create study groups,
Yeah.
when to have study sessions, having some of those questions, maybe pre-lecture or post-lecture, get answered by one of your classmates, right? And just, that's that level of curiosity that's oftentimes lacked in the classroom. Usually, like Jeff has mentioned before, when lecture starts, he finds himself in a really lucky spot if he understands 5 minutes out of an hour-long lecture, right?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Well, that means that basically when lecture starts, students are turning off their minds because information overload at an enormous amount of speed.
Yeah.
So all these things we can build up defensive systems for ourselves to be able to learn more meaningfully. And that's why this is a series that's valuable.
Yeah. I totally agree.
Yay. Okay, cool. I hope we can use a part of
Yeah.
that if I edit it.